Have you ever noticed how some people feel uneasy when care becomes consistent? Not dramatic care, not grand gestures, but the quiet kind that stays. They are fine when someone checks in once. They can accept help occasionally, but when someone shows up again, and again, and again, something inside them tightens. They feel watched, not in a bad way, just exposed. They start wondering, why are you still here? What do you want? When will this change? And the strange part is this: most of them once wished someone would care like this. So why does it feel uncomfortable now? Here is the psychology behind people who feel uneasy being cared for consistently. Point 1. Their nervous system learned that care does not last. Your brain is a pattern machine. It learns from repetition, not from words, from what actually happened. If care in your past came and went, if love was inconsistent, if warmth was followed by distance, your body learned a rule. Care is temporary. So when someone shows up steadily, your nervous system does not relax. It prepares, not for closeness, but for loss. You might not think this consciously, but your body remembers. It stays alert. It scans. It braces, because last time care stayed too long, it disappeared without warning. This is not ingratitude. It is conditioning. Your nervous system is protecting you from a pain it already knows. Point 2. They learn to survive by not needing. Some people had to grow up fast. They became emotionally independent early. They learned not to ask, not to rely, not to expect. They became the strong one, the self-sufficient one, the one who handles things alone. Psychology call? That's this avoidant coping. It is not coldness. It is survival. When you learn to regulate yourself, needing others started to feel unsafe. So when someone consistently cares, it challenges your identity. Because if someone can stay, then maybe you do not have to do everything alone. That idea feels comforting and terrifying. Comforting because it offers rest. Terrifying because it opens the door to disappointment. So instead of leaning in, you pull back. Not because you do not want connection, but because connection once cost you too much. Point 3. Consistency feels like an unspoken obligation. When care becomes steady, the brain starts calculating. What do they expect? What do I owe? What happens if I cannot give back? For people who grew up with conditional care, kindness always had strings. Love was earned. Attention was transactional. Support came with expectations. So when someone offers care freely, the mind does not trust it. It waits for the bill. This creates pressure. Pressure to perform. Pressure to reciprocate perfectly. Pressure to never disappoint. And instead of enjoying the care, they feel trapped by it, so they pull away before expectations can form. Point 4. Being cared for exposes parts they learn to hide. Care is intimate. It notices patterns. It remembers moods. It stays present, and presence sees you. For someone who survived by staying unseen, this feels dangerous, because being seen means being vulnerable, and vulnerability once led to rejection. So they keep emotional distance. Even when they crave closeness, they are comfortable giving, comfortable helping, comfortable being needed, but deeply uncomfortable being held. Because being held means letting someone see the softer parts, the tired parts, the unsure parts, parts they learn to protect. Point 5. Stability can feel like loss of control. People raised in unpredictable environments often developed vigilance. They learn to read people, track emotional shifts, adjust themselves constantly. Control became safety. Consistent care removes that control. It says you do not have to manage. You do not have to earn. You do not have to stay alert. And for a nervous system built on vigilance, that feels like falling. It feels like letting go of the steering wheel. So they resist calm, not because they prefer chaos, but because calm feels unfamiliar. Their body knows how to survive tension, not how to rest inside safety. And when rest is offered, their system does not recognize it as safe. There's another layer people rarely talk about. Consistent care can trigger grief, because when someone finally stays, the mind looks backward. It remembers the version of you who waited, the version who hoped, the version who learned not to ask anymore. And suddenly there's a quiet ache. Why now? Why not then? Psychology calls this Delayed emotional processing. It happens when the body finally has space to feel what it had to suppress. So instead of joy, sadness appears, or anger, or numbness. Not at the person caring, but at the years without it. And that grief can feel overwhelming. So the nervous system pulls away, not because the present is wrong, but because the past is unresolved. Another reason consistency feels uncomfortable is because it disrupts your internal stow. Either way, everyone carries a narrative about who they are. I am independent. I do not need much. I handle things on my own. These stories were built for survival. When someone keeps showing up, that story starts to crack, and the brain hates contradiction. Cognitive psychology calls this mental dissonance, the discomfort that arises when reality challenges identity. If your identity says I am on my own, and reality says someone is staying, something has to change, either the belief or the relationship. For many, it feels safer to reject the relationship, so the mind creates explanations. They're just being nice. It will not last. They will get tired. These are not negative thoughts. They are protective thoughts, because changing your inner story means changing how you relate to the world. And that feels like becoming someone new. Attachment patterns also play a role. When early bonds were inconsistent, the brain learned to regulate distance. Too close felt overwhelming. Too far felt lonely. So you learned to stay in between. You became skilled at connection without dependence. But consistent care moves past that middle space. It asks for trust, for surrender, for staying present, and that feels like a big emotional risk. So your body reacts before your mind understands. You might feel restless, irritable, detached. You might suddenly crave distance. Not because something is wrong, but because your system is adjusting to a new emotional frequency. Just like eyes need time to adjust to light, your nervous system needs time to adjust to care. There is also fear around reciprocity. When someone gives consistently, you become aware of your own limits. You start wondering, can I give this much? Can I be this steady? What if I disappoint them? This creates quiet anxiety. You are not afraid of them leaving. You are afraid of being the reason they do. So instead of risking future failure, you retreat now. You choose familiar loneliness over unfamiliar closeness. And this shows up subtly. You reply slower. You cancel plans. You keep conversations light. You avoid relying on them. Not because you do not care, but because caring feels like stepping onto a bridge you once saw collapse. So what does healing look like? It does not start with forcing comfort. It starts with curiosity. When you feel the urge to pull away, ask yourself gently, what am I protecting right now? Is this about this moment, or about an older experience that never finished? You do not need to override your instincts. You need to update them. Safety is not created by ignoring fear. It is created by letting fear learn something new. You can practice in small ways. Let someone do something kind without immediately balancing it. Stay in the warmth a few seconds longer. Notice the urge to minimize and do nothing. Remind yourself, this feeling is unfamiliar, not dangerous. Your nervous system is learning a new language, and new languages always feel awkward at first. You do not suddenly become someone who leans easily. You become someone who does not run immediately, and that is enough, because every moment you stay, you are rewriting the pattern. You are teaching your body that care does not always disappear. That consistency is not a trick. That being held does not mean being trapped. You are allowed to receive without earning. You are allowed to rest without proving. You are allowed to let someone stay. This is not weakness. This is repair. And repair is one of the bravest things a nervous system can do. If this felt like someone finally named something you never had words for, stay here. Subscribe for psychology that understands survival, not just behavior. And if someone in your life struggles to let others show up for them, share this. Sometimes the most healing realization is this: you are never broken. You were protecting yourself. And now, slowly, gently, you are learning how to live without armor.